We're now at a point in time where it's no longer grow, 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 right? We've had this incredible bull market, really low interest rate environment. You fast forward to where we are today, and I think it's a much different world. So a lot of discussion is really centered around the strategy, our guidance, what are we going to do for this year, and moving from a growth-oriented type of mentality to more of an expense control and margin-focused.
Joining me today is Jeremy Banoff, Vice Chairman with Ferguson Partners. Jeremy, it's good to see you again.
Great to see you, Matt.
Now, you were on a panel here at REITwise looking at corporate governance in a changing environment. In your experience, what has been the biggest change regarding REIT boards in recent years?
So actually, I was talking to a director of multiple REITs, and I asked them this question, and the answer was the Oscar-winning movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which I thought was actually pretty funny because I think that's how REIT boards have really evolved over the last few years. It used to be ESG was about E, environmental and sustainability. Well, as we all know, it's much more than that, right? REIT boards and diversity. That's obviously evolved quite nicely and will likely continue to evolve. Now you have cybersecurity to throw in there, climate change and rules, new pay-for-performance disclosure rules. Meetings are getting a lot longer because you're having to cram a lot more into them. And on top of that, of course, boards are there to help advise on strategy and major decisions. So I would say, going back to the comment of everything, everywhere, all at once, that probably seems to be a pretty good synopsis for the theme.
Now, you specifically spoke about some compensation developments by the SEC as they have been quite active lately with the brand new pay-for-performance disclosure and approval of clawback policies. What should REITs be aware of when it comes to those two items?
Well, I think the SEC had really good intentions for the pay-for-performance disclosure. That just came out. We're 3 weeks into this season right now. It's first time ever in 2023 here. So we're actually monitoring every day all the proxies and plus all the work that we do with REIT boards on drafting all these. Unfortunately, I don't know how helpful it's going to be from an investor perspective, and I'll give you an example. You are going to see many companies, not all by any stretch, but quite a number, that actually have negative values for what is called compensation actually paid. Now, I can assure you that no executive has worked for free, and even more so, they haven't written a check back to the company, as it would otherwise imply by being negative. Also, Nareit was very active in trying to get, even though it wasn't ultimately successful, with the final rules that one of the main metrics you have to disclose is net operating income. That's not a metric that's really that important and relevant to REIT investors and to the business, yet you have to disclose that. So on that one, I think we'll see what happens. Probably not a lot, other than it's disclosed, it's out there. I don't think investors are necessarily going to react to it too much, and there's much that you can actually do with it. On the other hand, the clawback policy, which there's time for, but it will be out later on this year in 2023, that is much more of a meaningful impact because now the final rules state that it's a mandatory requirement to recoup compensation across any type of restatement, which is both the big R and little r as it's known. So as we tell clients, stay out of trouble, you don't have to worry about it. But otherwise, if you find yourself in that situation, it could become an issue.
And finally, what have you observed in your working with REIT boards on compensation matters during this early part of 2023?
So just got done with quite a few compensation committee meetings, because everyone meets at the same time, January, February of the beginning of the year, and they're sending out their next year's comp program, new metrics, how we're going to reward executives, retain, incentivize, et cetera. And I think the biggest thing that we've observed is that we're now at a point in time where it's no longer grow, 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 right? We've had this incredible bull market, really low interest rate environment. You fast forward to where we are today, and I think it's a much different world. So a lot of discussion is really centered around the strategy, our guidance, what are we going to do for this year, and moving from a growth-oriented type of mentality to more of an expense control and margin-focused. So that's actually had an impact in terms of how you craft and design compensation programs. I don't think we're going to see necessarily all the big layoffs you're reading about in the tech world, right, that just grew way too fast. REITs historically have not done that. But nevertheless, I think there is a tightening that is occurring, and that obviously impacts ultimately the metrics and the goals that you set out for them.